This is a 2021 iPad Pro, and undoubtedly you've watched a bunch of YouTube videos about it saying why you should buy it and like why it's the greatest thing since sliced bread and all the other things. And of course, after having used it for a while, I can agree that it is probably the best tablet that you can buy today, period, end of story. Like, it's kind of hard to argue that. Having said that, whether or not you should buy this really falls into a couple of different groups of people. And quite frankly, I've come up with some pretty strong reasons to not buy this thing. And it's not because the product itself isn't excellent. It is, quite frankly, the best tablet you can buy. But it's not necessarily the tablet that you should buy. And I'll tell you all about it right after this.
This is, you listening to Travis.
What up, players? Welcome back. And for all you new people, welcome. My name's Travis and I do tech videos every single week and have a blast doing them. If that sounds like fun to you, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Anything I talk about will be in the description below. But for now, let's just get into the video. So as most of you know, I'm a huge fan of the iPad Pro. I edit my entire channel using the iPad Pro and LumaFusion, so I'm pretty well versed in all the iPad Pros. And I'll be doing some more videos about this, comparing this to the 2020 version of the iPad Pro and even the M1 MacBook Air, just because if you like that sort of thing, make sure you hit the subscribe button because you won't want to miss those videos. I want to make sure that this is something you actually should be buying. Now, this is the 12.9-inch iPad Pro with M1 with 256 gigs of storage. That means it also has 8 gigs of RAM. Now, if we're going to talk about just the things that you can rely on getting now versus some of the things that I've talked about in previous videos that maybe you can hang your hat on, we're going to go there. I'll talk briefly about the things that may happen to this thing in the future, but let's just take it for what it is right now. And that is the most expensive iPad that I've ever bought. Like, come on, son. The iPad Pro has always been expensive, but man, the 12.9 inch, especially with these new storage options and more RAM, is just dumb expensive, like stupid expensive. And for that, you need to get high quality. So let's look at some of the things that the new iPad Pro comes with it. And really, to be honest, it's kind of one specific thing. And I'm not even talking about the M1 processor. We'll talk about that here in a minute. It comes down to the screen. That new mini LED is everything, or at least it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be the next generation of displays, and we should start seeing this display on things like MacBook Airs, MacBook Pros, and such coming in the future, the new kind of technology for tablets. And yes, it looks incredible. If you've ever seen an OLED screen, it's actually pretty similar to that. It looks similar-ish to that. Certainly a step up from LCD, but here's something that's kind of interesting. Apple's been doing LCD screens for a while now in their phones and their tablets, and they've done a good job. They've done maybe too good of a job. Because when you compare to this, you realize how good the LCD screens are. Now, to be clear, the basic advantage of this screen over any of the previous iPads, which I will talk about more in a future video, is the fact that it can be darker and brighter. It has a pitch black when you need it, and a completely super bright for HDR content. So I decided to take the 2020 iPad Pro, watch some HDR content on it, and compare it to this, the 2021 iPad Pro with the mini LED. Now I'm just going to go ahead and say it now. It does look better on this tablet, as it should. But when you think about the price difference, especially now that the older iPads are going to be on sale, you'll be able to get it for cheaper, is it worth the multi-$100 of difference that there is? No. And this comes from a guy who has a 77-inch OLED in his living room for gaming and TV watching. I like the best display possible. And yes, this is the best display possible. Barely. And what I mean by that is, especially in some HDR content that I've looked at, I can see the difference, but I am absolutely positive other people will not see the difference. Now, it's hard to see on a shot like this. I mean, you may not be able to tell the difference at all because of the video taking it and not being able to see HDR. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you compare last year's versus this year's, you're going to find that the absolute LCD beast that the iPad Pro is, like, it's incredible that last year's iPad Pro is so good. We thought that this was just going to blow it out of the water. And yes, while the contrast is better on this, and there are deeper blacks, and the brightness is definitely brighter, in the HDR content, it's only a little bit different when you turn the brightness all the way up on both iPads. This actually kind of shocked me because at first, you could definitely see the difference when they were at about half brightness each. You could definitely see the sharp, pinging, bright lights that were in the video content I was looking at. But then as soon as you made them both full, it was actually a lot more close than I thought it would be. So much so that I started wondering, well, why did I buy this thing? I'm not currently editing content in HDR. I suppose I could if I really wanted to. But even if I did, I mean, like, Is it really worth that? I'm not sure that it is. One good piece of news is that the iPad Pro actually does work with the old Magic Keyboard. Now, they said that it would fit, but not perfectly, but I literally see no difference. It works perfectly. If you have the old Magic Keyboard and you want to get the new iPad Pro, you're fine. And of course, it has a Thunderbolt connector on the bottom, which is going to be great for transferring things to and from. But quite frankly, the only thing I'm transferring from is an SD card and the SD card reader, which is not going to be as fast as Thunderbolt, so I don't see any speed difference there either. So you get a better screen that you can sometimes see the difference on if you're really paying attention, and then a port that's definitely faster that I personally can't take advantage of. Now, others will be able to with displays and everything else, so I'm going to give you that. But for the most part, no difference so far. But what about that M1 processor? Well, first of all, the M1 processor is, of course, the latest and greatest from Apple. It's in their desktops now, it's in their laptops, and now on their tablet. Now, to be clear, really what it is it's a tablet processor in a laptop and in a desktop, not the other way around. They didn't cram a desktop processor into a tablet. It was always going to go in the iPad Pro. They just were able to take it out of here and put it into other things. But the marketing makes it seem like it's an amazing accomplishment. And again, like, this thing is super fast. But it was last year too. Now, having the M1 processor also allows it to do some other things, including have 8 and 16 gigs of RAM. Good goobly goo. That's a lot of RAM, and I've talked about this on multiple videos, and that I think that professional level apps will be coming out for this tablet. I mean, there's no reason for it not to at this point. It's a beast. If we see professional level apps on this tablet versus the previous versions, then this definitely becomes a super beast, and I'm hoping we'll see that at WWDC. Having said that, I don't know that that means that this thing is worth the extra money you have to pay right now. Again, when I dive more into the 2020-2018 version versus this, we'll see. But so far, it's not looking good. And again, I'll get to the reason, perhaps the biggest reason why you shouldn't buy this. But before we get into that, I have a sponsor that you can literally use right on this tablet. Super excited to have Audible aboard. While I do like books, I don't like having to sit down and dedicate time to actually read them. So because of that, and because I'm always on the go, I've kind of fallen behind on some really great titles. Until now. Thanks to Audible. Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment all in one place. At Audible, you can find the largest selection of audiobooks ranging from bestsellers to new releases. As an Audible member, you will get 1 credit every month, good for any title in the entire premium selection, including new bestsellers. You'll also get access to the popular Plus catalog. It's filled with thousands of audiobooks, original entertainment, guided fitness, meditation, and even podcasts. I actually love the Steve Jobs audiobook. If you missed this one, you can grab it right now on Audible. You can find out how Apple became the most powerful company in the world. Not only that, Audible will save your place, so if you start on your computer, you can continue on your phone and even finish on your tablet. For me, this makes enjoying titles even better, as I don't have to be in one place to read a book. With everything you love to listen all in one app, Audible is your playlist for life. New members can try Audible for free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/TravisMCP. That's audible.com/TravisMCP, or text TravisMCP to 500-500. Text Travis MCP to 500-500. And thanks Audible for sponsoring this video. Now, the M1 processor is known for speed and efficiency. As far as the battery life goes, it seems about the same as my last iPad Pro. And as far as speed goes, this is kind of tricky because within the operating system itself, it's basically the same. I mean, moving your screens around is about the same. Opening apps is fast, but it always has been. So I decided to do something really to give me an idea of how much faster this thing is. And I was really surprised. In a bad way. Now, you might see a lot of tech YouTubers take video editing software like LumaFusion, like I did, and use that as a test. And a lot of people ask, well, why do you use that? I don't necessarily edit video. That's mainly because there's not a lot of other realistic ways to test out the processing power in these devices. Gaming is about the same. You pretty much get the same frame rates and everything. Mobile games are not like PC games. Some of them do have settings, but for the most part, they're the same. Of course, websites open as fast as they ever have, and scrolling is the same. So there's really no way to know that something's faster unless you put a load on the processor consistently. And that's what I did in LumaFusion when I exported a 4K file that's 10 minutes long and did the 2020 version versus the M1 version. And yeah, the M1 won, but not by much. When you consider how much more expensive the M1 is and how much newer the technology is, you would expect it to absolutely dunk all over the 2020 version, the A12Z that's in there. By the way, it's 2 generations old, but it didn't. That 10-minute 4K file only rendered 5 seconds faster. 5 seconds. I was hoping to get faster than real-time rendering on this thing, and I didn't. In other words, the video was about 10 minutes long, and it took just under 10 minutes to render it out. And it just took 5 seconds less than that on the 2020 version, which, by the way, is basically the 2018 version, as the 2018 and 2020 version of the iPad Pro share the same processor with just one extra GPU core enabled on the 2020 version. And trust me when I tell you, of the test between those two, they're basically the same. So it's possible we've already hit peak iPad power, unless those professional apps come out. I gotta tell you right now, this thing is overpowered. We kind of knew that going into it, but we truly know now it can't get any faster with the iPad apps that are already there. It's already as fast as it's going to be. The only thing you can do now is get it more complicated apps, and I hope that that's what you'll get on the upcoming updates here on the iPad Pro. Maybe WWDC will show us some of that. Now, some people will say get the M1 version of the iPad Pro because you'll get more updates than the previous iPad Pro, which is, I guess, true. But here's the thing. They're going to support the last year's iPad Pro for many, many years. And in the time that they stop supporting that versus this will be so old that if you really need a cutting edge tablet like this right now, you won't be using this in 5 years. So I don't really consider that a really good reason to buy this over the existing iPad Pros. So in a lot of ways, if you have one of the two iPad Pros from the last couple of years, I don't see the point. As a matter of fact, Apple has kind of done themselves a disservice and made the last two iPad Pros so good that you almost don't really need this one. Now, when you get the 11-inch iPad Pro and there's no difference between that screen and the one from last year, there's even less reason to upgrade. Listen, if you don't have any iPad Pros and you're looking for something, I still say get one of the 2018 or 2020 versions. It's 95% of what you're already getting. I just don't see the point. But if you like the latest and greatest and want to get something super badass, I mean, listen, the M1 is waiting for you. And there are some cool things that could be happening at WWDC, but you shouldn't buy this right now with the promise of something that may never happen. I speculate that it will, but I could be wrong. What do you think? Leave me a comment below and tell me what you think about the new iPad Pro. Do you want one? Are you going to get one? Link will be in the description below, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love.